Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Kids, when they're with their friends, they need us to talk to them about being safe, being healthy, being wise.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Justin Coulson. I'm here with Kylie, my wife, mum to our 6 kids. I'm the author of 6 books about raising happy families and the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. We have got so much to talk about in this podcast.
Well, that's what happens when you go away for 2 weeks.
It's really, really exciting. I have to share the funniest line that we've ever heard from maybe the funniest line we've ever heard from any of our kids. The other day, we were talking to Emily, our 7-year-old. She was not sitting still when she should have. and I said to her, Emily, can you please just sit still? Is it possible for you to be still? I mean, I was trying to be patient, but she really pushed me to the limit. I'm like, can you please sit still? Is it possible? And she looked at me and said, no, I'm like a shark. If I stay still, I'll die.
I love this kid. I love her expressions.
If I stop moving, I'll die.
She's so articulate.
Yeah, not bad for a 7-year-old. It's because of all those books that you're reading her. Instead of fairy and princess stories that our other big kids all wanted to hear all the time, all she wants to do is hear stories about textbook insects and sharks and fish. And she's into Pokemon at the moment, driving me crazy with the Pokemon cards.
Yep.
These fads that 7-year-olds get involved in.
Well, we've never really had another child who's been into any fad.
No, and it's been really nice until now. Hey, Kylie, school holidays for New South Wales, in fact, for the entire eastern seaboard, school holidays are over. Life is resuming. The October long weekend has come and gone. And how are you feeling? You're feeling relaxed after, like you said, about 8 days away?
Well, can I tell you, holidays were relaxing. It did take you and I a couple of days to relax. We actually looked at each other and thought, I think we've done the wrong thing. We've booked in for way too long. And then by the time we left, we were like, do we have to leave?
Yeah, so we went to Bowen and we've fallen in love with the place, but there's not very much there.
Do you know most people say, where's Bowen?
Where's Bowen? Yeah, it's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours south of Townsville, depending on the roadworks. Oh gosh, we can talk about the holiday on Friday, but I do want to just tease that we are going to share a story with you about an accidental trespassing on a nude beach with our children. We'll tell you more about.
I can't believe you're bringing that up.
We'll tell you more about that on Friday. Whoops, don't know how that happened. And I'm just going to also add,
worst parenting moment ever.
Seedy and gross, and even if you do it by accident, just turn around and run the other way if it ever happens to you. Not a highlight of the holiday at all. Gosh. Oh, big news. Big news. While we were away on our holiday, Channel 9 made an announcement, and it was quite a big one.
Well, it was pretty patchy. We didn't have coverage for most of our trip.
Yeah, well, when we left Bowen, we did some other stuff, and that meant that we were out of internet range for a lot of the time.
So we actually missed the whole event.
The moment, yeah, yep.
But the next morning, we were able to see firsthand
what it's all about.
Channel 9's promo for the latest parenting show,
Parental Guidance. Check it out.
It's the biggest responsibility of our lives.
We want our children to be the good in the world.
Raising a child. But how do you know?
Think about the happiest time in your life.
You're doing it right.
I feel like a failure.
Ali Langdon and parenting expert Dr. Justin Coulson
We think, I just love these kids. I want to give them the best.
bring you the groundbreaking new series that will challenge every Australian.
This is going to change the conversation about parenting in this country.
New Parental Guidance. Soon to 9.
I am just so excited about this TV show. We recorded it back in April, May, before the big lockdowns happened. The timing was perfect. And boy, oh boy, this is going to be such an exciting TV show.
What's the deal though? Because that promo is pretty provocative.
Oh, well, that's what promos do. I mean, the TV station is going to put a promo out there that says, you need to see this because you're going to...
Well, it says it's from the producers of Married at First Sight.
No, that's not what it says. I'm glad you raised that. It doesn't say from the producers. It's from the network that brought you. So the people who have made Parental Guidance, the show that I'm on, they've got nothing to do with Married at First Sight. And a lot of people are up in arms. They're like, oh my goodness, if the same people that made Married at First Sight are making this one, it's going to be awful. Endemol Shine is the name of the company that makes Married at First Sight. And then they sell that to Channel 9. The company that have made Parental Guidance, the one that I'm in, they're called Eureka, and they do not have anything to do with Married at First Sight. So we're in the clear there. It's for those who are worried about it turning into that kind of thing.
But generally speaking, reality TV shows, they're pretty bad. You know, you see the worst of human nature come out.
Yeah, you do. What's your point?
Well, you want to put your name against something like that?
No, so I'm very I'm not allowed to say very much about the show at this point. I can share very, very little. But what I can say is this is a positive and uplifting show that I am proud to be part of, and it really celebrates parenting, but it doesn't shy away from the big issues that parents struggle with. And we have some really hard and important conversations with very good intentions. And what we actually do is we elevate great parenting in the show. So regardless of what you've seen in the promo, what I can guarantee is that this is going to be a TV program that will change the way we look at parenting in this country for the better. It's a great show.
Okay, so you're giving me goosebumps. I cannot wait to see this.
I'm kind of scared because, you know, when you watch yourself on a home video or something, you're like, really, do I look like that? Do I sound like that? I'm worried about it from that point of view. But so long as the stuff that comes out of my mouth makes sense, I cannot wait to see this show.
Well, when we saw the promo, our son-in-law Jared was with me, and I kind of looked at him and I said, did that kind of seem a bit surreal? Here we are, we're watching the TV, and all of a sudden you popped up, your face popped up, and it was like, was he just superimposed in there? We know that guy.
So I should just highlight, by the way, Parental Guidance is a show where I am the quote-unquote parenting expert for the entire show, for the entire series, and I'm also co-hosting it with Ali Langdon from the Today Show. She sits next to Carl normally, but this time she's sitting next to me for the program, and it's going to be I can't say any more except that it's going to be great. I'm going to be repetitive, and I don't think that we should do that. So let's move on to the purpose of today's podcast, if that's okay. Oh, you know what we have to do before we do that? I do have to mention that today the Misconnection Summit is happening. If you've got a tween...
You're not allowed to go on holidays again.
There's so much to talk about. If you've got a tween or teen girl, 8 to 18, all day today, the Misconnection Summit is happening, talking with experts from around the country about all of the big stuff. And you can get more information about that at happyfamilies.com.au. It's not too late to sign up. And even if you can't watch the whole thing, we send you the replays, the links. You can watch it at your own leisure, in your own convenient time.
For the rest of your life.
Lifelong access to the Misconnection Summit. So please have a look there. Let's move on, shall we? May we?
Well, on Tuesdays, we answer somebody's question.
And today we're going to keep the emailer anonymous because it's kind of a sensitive one and we don't want to make anyone feel embarrassed. By the way, you can send your questions to us, podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. That's podcasts with an S, podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. And I'll answer as an expert. You'll answer as a mum of 6 with like 20. Oh, how many? I reckon you've got about 80 years of parenting experience under your belt in terms of if you add up the cumulative total of all of our children's ages.
I already feel old. Thank you.
Maybe I shouldn't have said it like that. You read the question. I'm going to work out how many years of children we've parented.
Our almost 10-year-old was caught taking things from other people's bags at school. He and his friend were sent to the principal's office for a stern talking to and reflection on what they had done. The principal rang to tell me what had happened, and he said he feels that both boys were remorseful and had received their consequence at school. He said it was up to us, but he didn't feel like it needed any further action at home. The stealing is out of character for both boys, and we can tell that our son was upset by the whole thing and is feeling terrible about it. We do agree with the principal that they've probably learnt their lesson. However, we feel like there should be a consequence at home.
Right. Oh, and then the letter goes on to just indicate that their son has brought some stuff home and said, oh, my friends gave it to me, and now they know that he's lying about that. So should there be a consequence because of the lying that's happened at home, even though the stuff's been dealt with at school? And then they also acknowledged in the email that when they were kids, both of them
had sticky fingers.
You got in trouble for shoplifting and that kind of stuff as well. I think it might be genetic. What do you think?
I don't think so. But anyway, let's find out how we can help this family and anyone else who's ever dealt with sticky fingers after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we're trying to help anyone who's dealt with sticky fingers.
Yeah, kids that are into stealing stuff, whether it's from shops or other people's school bags or anything like that. We've had a request come through. Please help via podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au.
This family's not alone. I remember when one of our children came home with a purse full of coins.
Really?
Do you remember that?
I don't know.
And she said that her friend gave it to her.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. A Coulson did that. That's terrible. I can't believe that.
But it took a little bit of convincing until she realised that I wasn't going to believe her. And she fessed up and said, it was actually in my friend's piggy box.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh.
So she went back to the door and she knocked on the door and she told the mum what she did and she handed it all back.
Okay, so can you just, with your fingers, show me so we're not, because there's another one that I want to mention. Oh, it was the same one that I was going to mention. Maybe it was this problem child, because I was going to say we had another one who stole stuff from the shops. Maybe it was just that kid. But what?
Maybe we just got better at parenting as we went along.
So I think there's a couple of things that we need to highlight here. First of all, kids both follow their friends and they influence their friends, and they do dumb stuff when their friends are around. So I've talked about the milk challenge before on this podcast and how I would never open the fridge and think, gee, I wonder if I can drink that much milk in that short amount of time, unless I had my friends with me coaxing me and saying, go on, do it. Like, that's just a dumb thing that kids do. Lawrence Steinberg is one of the world's leading psychologists when it comes to adolescence. He's done more research than just about anyone, and he's done some really cool risk-taking research showing that kids, when they're brought into a lab, children, teenagers and adults, they come in on their own or they come in with a friend. When they participate in this little risk-taking exercise, a little computer simulation, they've got to ride a motorbike or drive a car through a city, and when the lights change, they've got to make a decision. Do I try and get through the lights or do I pause? They earn more money in the experiment for finishing fast. So there's an incentive to get to the end quickly, to run through the lights. But if they crash, they lose time. So there's risk associated with it as well. And what Steinberg found is that when kids are playing, whether they've got a friend watching them or not, they pretty much play exactly the same way. When teenagers, adolescents are playing, they play fairly conservatively when they're on their own, but when they've got a friend with them, they kind of take way bigger risks and way more risks. Adults, they don't really care whether there's someone watching them or not. They play the same way.
I wouldn't care.
Yeah, they don't really care. So what we're dealing with here is we've got a kid who's just entering early adolescence and is starting to take risks, starting to be influenced by friends and probably starting to influence friends as well, trying to figure out who he is in the world. So,
it's interesting when you hear the story, there's two boys involved and it's out of character for both of them.
Yes.
So it's not like there's a leader and a follower. These kids, generally speaking, wouldn't do this. But together, there's just this bad mix at the moment.
I got in a lot of trouble with my friends, never got into trouble on my own. But when I was with friends, I was always getting into trouble because it's kind of like, hey, let's go out and sit on the street corner and stuff beans up our nose.
Or throw rocks at cars.
Yeah. And you hear stories about that all the time. So I think that's the first thing to acknowledge. Kids, when they're with their friends, they need us to talk to them about being safe, being healthy, being wise. Don't talk about right and wrong so much because they roll their eyes. It's not that there isn't right and wrong. I strongly believe in right and wrong. But when we talk about right and wrong, the kids are like, always telling me what to do. But when we talk about safe, healthy, wise, it's much more objective. It's not so moralistically oriented. And then later on, you can bring the morals in. So that would be one thing that I would really focus on.
Well, I guess their question, if we boiled it all down, they want to understand whether or not they're really happy with how the school has dealt with things, but they also feel like there needs to be a consequence at home.
Yes.
And so that's what they want to know, Dr. Justin. So, should there be a consequence at home?
I think this is a fascinating question. What does consequence mean? That's what I want to start with, because when I hear a parent say, should we make sure, should we be imposing consequences, I think that there should be a consequence at home, even though there's been a consequence at school. Consequence really is another way of saying, what should we do to him now? How should we?
Yeah, well, in that context, I hear punishment.
Yeah, that's right. And consequence and punishment are really just consequence is a sugar-coated, soft way of saying how do we punish him? How do we exact retribution? How do we make him pay a price for what he's done? Because he's stealing and he's lying, and he has to learn, and the only way we can make him learn is to hurt him.
Well, you talk about natural consequences. So if I am a liar and I keep lying, then the natural consequence of that is that people don't trust me.
Precisely.
It's not that as a parent I enforce.
Right. And a lot of parents will get caught up in, well, there's natural consequences and then there's like logical consequences. And anything that is extrinsically imposed, that becomes some kind of consequence or punishment that we're putting on them. That's not a natural consequence. It's something that we're doing. So the natural consequence of stealing is people don't trust you. The natural consequence of lying is people don't trust you. And I'm pretty happy for kids to learn that through life. And they learn it really effectively, usually, when that's going on.
We're actually going to have a really exciting conversation tomorrow with a guest.
Yes.
That fits in beautifully with this.
I'm so glad you said that. I hadn't even thought of that.
Michael Parker wrote a book called Talk with Your Kids About Things That Matter. We're talking to him tomorrow on the podcast about his book and the hypothetical conversations that we can have with our children to tap into their values.
Yeah, to teach them to think, to be a little bit more philosophical, and to develop a real sense of intrinsic ethical
shape-shifting aliens and all kinds of crazy things that
guidance.
You can have conversations with your kids about things that really matter. And here in this situation, we've got this child who's acted out of line, but also out of character. And so from here, instead of imposing a consequence, we get to have conversations.
Well, you've teased tomorrow really, really well. To the person who sent us that email via podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au, we hope that it's been a helpful response. Ultimately, it really comes back to the 3 E's. Gee, we've covered a lot today. We've got a crazy 7-year-old who thinks she's a shark and has to keep on moving, otherwise she's going to drown. We've talked about a big TV show. We've hinted that on Friday we're going to talk about a nude beach experience, which I'm not sure we should really talk about now that I've teased that. And we've answered a question about a child who steals and lies and feels bad about it. Hopefully we've helped. If you've enjoyed the podcast, we would love for you to leave a rating and review. Apple Podcasts is where you do that. It takes about 30 seconds to do it, and it bumps us up in the algorithm so other people can find out about the podcast to make their family happier. Please leave those ratings and reviews. And we, as always, appreciate the work of Justin Rulon from Bridge Media and Craig Bruce, our executive producer, for making the podcast sound the way that it does. For more information about making your family happier, and especially for today's Misconnection Summit for anyone who's a parent of a teenage or tweenage girl, 8 to 18, visit happyfamilies.com.au.